Hi, my name is John, and I'm an addict in recovery. And lately, there's been a lot of talk about racism. And there's so much in the news about all kinds of racism. And black this and black that, and civil rights being violated, and you know, just and mostly against police. You know, mostly talking about the police. The police and how they treat people and stuff like that. But it's you kind of like have to be like on the other side of that. I give you a for instance, like one time and I understand the police have like an authority and everything, and but you shouldn't have to be afraid to talk to the police, if you haven't done anything wrong. Like you shouldn't have to like be talked to like a child, or talk down to, like if you're like less than a citizen, especially if they're supposed to be protecting you. you know but like I had a situation where I got pulled over, at one of those police stops, when you're driving and stuff, like one of those you know what do you call, like a checking, like to check, for your driver's license and everything, make sure that you have everything correct, and I was stopped, and I was told to pull over to the side. And when I turned around and pulled over to the side, like, I asked the police officer what seems to be the problem. And he says, oh, you have like one of your tail lights, the light for the tag is not on. It's not working. And I looked at him and I said, well, it's real hard to tell if anything back there is working because I can't see. I try to explain to him that that unless somebody told me that it was off, there was no way that I could tell that it was off. Like there's nothing in the car letting me know that. And when I went to explain that to him, he like really got like really um like he took this attitude, like I was being disrespectful in some way, and started talking down to me. He says, oh, you want me to give you a ticket? And like he started threatening me, like he was gonna like do something to me because I was talking to him and explaining to him that that I mean, it just seemed ridiculous for him to even talk to me like that, and it wasn't a white police officer; it was actually a black police officer. So, like a lot of times people say, you know, um, you know, that it's a white officer talking to a black person or whatever, and in this case, it was a black officer talking to a white, and it was just his attitude towards me, you know. And of course, I'm Spanish. I don't know, I'm sure he knew that because from my driver's license, he could tell from my last name that I was Spanish. And I don't know if he was treating me that because I was Spanish. I don't know. That might be a reason, maybe not. I at that time, it didn't really matter to me. It was just the way he was talking to me as a police, and he hasn't like been the only one who's actually done something like that. Like, like I haven't, like I've gotten treated like that, even by sometimes even a white police officer. So I don't usually look at color. It doesn't really make a difference to me. It's just the human person and how they talk to you, and but it seems like you have to kind of be on the other side of that. Like, I went into a car dealership one time to go buy a car, and I went to go talk to the man inside, and he looked at me, after talking to me for a few minutes, and he looked at me and he says, oh, you one of them. Like, I was like, one of what? Like, yeah, I mean, I question the same thing that y'all probably thinking right now. One of them, like, what is he talking about? And like, he was white, and he was basically, like, I guess he realized that I was Spanish or whatever, and like he kind of say you one of them, like if I was some kind of outsider or something like that. But like these things, I don't really think that this happens to people that are white. You know, um, unless like they're among a whole lot of black people, and I've been there on that side too. I've been around a lot of black people, and I've also been like around a lot of white people. And the funny thing about somebody who's Spanish, like you know either one, you're in an awkward situation, because like like white people don't really know how to treat you, because you ain't really white, but you look white. And and uh and black people don't really know how to treat you, because you know you're not black, but you look white, so. And they don't understand what Spanish is, and realize that like it's just like it's awkward, that you're treated different because of of you know the, not the color, not even the color of your skin. It just because of who you are, like as far as like being Spanish, and I have a friend who basically tells me, like, and that's another thing, like everybody, when I tell somebody I'm Spanish, they think that I'm from Mexico. Like everybody that's Spanish comes from Mexico. Like they don't know that Puerto Rico exists, Spain exists. There's so many other different countries, that Spanish people come from. And they automatically always think that that I'm Mexican or something, or do I know how to cook tacos? And it just seems awkward, to be put. It's and like I say, you really don't know anything about racism, like as far as like what people talk about, like like they say, oh, you're not really racist, but like you're sitting there, and having to tell somebody what nationality somebody is, when like if you're describing a situation, you always say, oh, that black man I was talking to, or that white man I was talking to. And like I don't really talk. I say, look, that man I was talking to, or that woman that I was talking to, or that little kid. Like I never really mentioned color, but like people get real specific, you know especially down in the South, like down here in the South. And I don't want to put the South down. I love this place. I've been here for 20 something years, and I've been like really you know um like being really accepted here. And even though people still treat me different, because they do treat me different, and I notice the difference, like. And like I said, it doesn't, like, people don't really realize it, because they don't think that they're doing anything different, but it's because they've been raised that way all their life. Like, you've always been that way, so like you don't see anything wrong with what you're doing. But like, to other people who are different, who are being treated different, we realize it. Like, we realize it. And like, people turn around and say that racism is just a white thing, but it's not really just white people. It's black people too. They're racist, and they talk about white people, the way they talk about them. And either one, like, talk about each other. And I've always been taught to be colorblind, and look at things in, like I said, just look at people as being people, and not as colors, or like what race they came from, like the human race. You know what I'm saying? Like, white race, black race, really. I mean, there's the human race. We're all the human race. And it seems awkward, that you would have to talk about stuff like this even in recovery, but it exists, it exists, and sometimes, unfortunately, people do treat you different, sometimes, depending on, where you from, or where you come from and stuff. But I'm, you know, I, I, it's just that it's being talked a lot about, racism. And I find it strange that people want to point fingers at what's going on, but nobody wants to talk about you know um the reality of this whole deal, and how people really get treated differently. And it's not because, like, I'm taking sides. I'm not taking nobody's side here. I'm not taking the police side. I'm not taking the black people's side. I'm not taking anybody's side. I'm just saying, like, if we look at each other and the way we treat people and how we treat each other, that we'll see where the problem exists. You know, how we treat other people, and you know how we look at different at other people. You know, I realize that sometimes, you know, when I look at a Muslim or a person that's dressed like an Arab or something like that, like sometimes there's a certain fear that overtakes me, because I'm thinking, because I've heard all this stuff in the media about, you know, them ISIS and them looking, you know, that when you see one of them, you tend to, you know, like associate them with whatever negativity it is with them too. You know what I'm saying? And you know, unfortunately, this does exist. You know what I'm saying? But I'm sure that not everybody who's Muslim, you know, is ISIS, or you know, a terrorist or anything like. But you know, we tend to look at them that way because, you know, and you know, it's always been like the way America does things. You know, like when you know, the Japanese, like when you know, the Japanese, you know, bombed Pearl Harbor, like they treated all the Japanese like they did, like they had, you know, bombed Pearl Harbor, and they were Japanese that were living here in this country. You know, so you know, it's ironic that we have to think that way, that we even feel that way. You know, it's ironic, you know, that we have to like, you know, that even exists, because love should be blind. You know, love, you know, should, you know, should be blind as far as looking at what different color or what different culture we come from. You know, we should be loving each other regardless. And you know, I think, you know, I kind of went over some of my time, but like this is a real big deal, you know, this issue. And I think that we all really need to talk about, you know, we really need to talk about, you know, we really need to talk about this topic, you know, in America, you know. And I know, look, no matter how many rules we make, or how many civil rules or right, you know, or laws that we change, you know, to make people, you know, treat each other equally, you know, the change doesn't happen from the outside. It happens inside the mind. And if we don't change this in here, you know, we're always going to be looking at each other, you know, that way. You know, we're always going to be looking at each other like, oh yeah, like that person is, you know, black or white. And you know, like because it begins inside the mind. It begins in the thought. It begins in the way we think. It begins in the way we believe things. So like it has to change inside the mind. It does, you know, in our hearts, you know. And you know, if we don't change inside the heart of the mind, if we can't change the heart of the mind, then you know, like the people, they're going to continue to be the same way that they are. You know, and they're not at blame. You know, like they probably been, you know, raised that way or grown that way to believe stuff, and you know, raised in a society or in a family household that taught them, you know, to think that way. You know, and we know how that exists. I mean, you know, we have, you know, white supremacists. We have people who have been raised that way. We got ISIS right now, where they're treating, teaching little children to think the way they think. So you know, it does have something to do with the way we're raised, and it does have something to do with the way we're taught, and the way, you know, we're taught to believe. You know, and a lot of what we know needs to change. A lot of what we know needs to be, you know, looked at again. You know, there's something in the basic text that says everything we know about the truth is subject to revision. Well, actually, everything we know is subject to revision, especially what we know about the truth. You know, and you know, like that makes a lot of sense. You know, to be able, you know, to look at everything that we know, and to look at everything that we believe, and be open minded enough to try to maybe change, maybe look at it and see if it needs to be changed. Because if it needs to be changed, you know, because of it might be doing harm to us or somebody else, you know, then we need to look at that. We need to look at it, and you know, think of it different. You know, but anyway, I've gone over, you know, the time, and you know, I just wanted to bring out this point. I probably just touched a little bit on it. I didn't touch enough, you know, enough on it, you know, to turn around and talk about it. But you know, it does exist, you know, and it does happen, you know. And most of the time, it's usually the minorities that feel it more than anybody else, you know, because like I said, you know, like Most white people, they don't have to, unless they're put in a situation where they're among many, and even then, like, depending on who they are and how they believe, they're not really put in awkward situations. But I'm grateful, to be alive. I'm grateful to be able to be free, to to be free, to be able to express myself and to talk about me. And if I just want to say, if nobody told you they love you today, I love you. And I don't care what color you are or where you come from. you know I, I just love people. I just love who they are. And sometimes they can be ugly by the way they believe. They don't even have to, it doesn't have to do with physical attraction. It has to do with like spiritual attraction. And but I'm so grateful, you know uh, um for the program, for the 12-step program, and for what it's done to me, and be able to keep me with an open mind and be able to see things differently today. So, with that, I just want to say I love you, whoever you are, whoever's listening. And you know you know and if I love you, and so does the God of my understanding. Thank you for letting me share. Thank you for listening. And